Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, Jeff talks with Keith Law about 7 more Dodgers prospects, including James Outman and Dalton Rushing, along with why Law ranked the Dodgers as the top farm system in baseball for the second straight year.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you never want to miss a day, because you know we're not going to, you can subscribe in both of those places and have it directly delivered to you every weekday morning. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Samperio. You'll see my co-host Jeff Snider a little bit later talking with Keith Law. We're both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent time covering the team, continue to cover the team, and have been around all over Dodger Stadium. And we're here to bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning for about 30 minutes. And that's what we're going to do today. Although today we're going to be joined on bringing you some smart fans' perspective, because Jeff is back on with Keith Law, talking Dodgers prospects, getting into James Outman, getting into guys like Dalton Rushing, getting into guys like Ryan Pepiot, Andy Pajes, Nick Nastrini, and a couple other names. So that's what they're going to get into today. We know the Dodgers signed David Peralta and Alex Reyes. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. But today's episode is Jeff and Keith Law, and here it is.
Next on our list is Dalton Rushing, our second catcher on the list, number 62 on your top 100. I've seen Dalton Rushing play in person one time when he was at Rancho Cucamonga last year. And he looked to me, to my untrained eye, like a guy who could hit and own some catcher's gear. So they said, hey, why don't you put on that gear and go catch for us?
You know, he barely caught in college, right? He was Henry Davis's backup. Henry Davis was, for folks who don't know, he was the first overall pick in 2021. He's now in the Pirates system. He's also a great prospect. Then Rushing gets out he was the backup. And then Rushing gets to catch. He only caught about half the games for Louisville last spring, which I do think is part of how he ended up the 41st pick in the draft. Let me tell you, the number of pro scouts who came back to me and said, how did the Dodgers get this guy? Every other team passed on him, right? I believe they were the last team to make their first pick. Every other team had a shot at Dalton Rushing, and multiple teams passed on him twice. And right now, he's probably one of the 10 best prospects from the draft class. This is all subject to change, but it looks really good. And what everybody came back and said was, this guy can hit, usually with an expletive in there before the word hit. And it's, can he catch? I don't care. He can hit. Nobody's come back to me and said that guy can't catch at all. He might just be a below average catcher who mashes, and that's fine. And again, setting aside, like, I'm team agnostic with all these rankings and write-ups too. The Dodgers got some catching. Between Smith and Cartaya and Rushing, they probably got 6 more guys who will debut in the DSL this year who I haven't even heard of, and one of them will be a superstar. Like, this is just, the Dodgers are that good. Obviously, 1 or even 2 of those guys I mentioned are going to end up in other organizations. So maybe Rushing never catches a game for the Dodgers. And maybe at some point, there's always a possibility too that they just say, this guy hits so well, we're just going to move him to first or DH because we also have a catcher. But I'm trying to be team agnostic. And what I have on Rushing so far is there's not really any reason he can't catch, but he can really hit. And I mean, really hit, not just for a catcher, but he can really hit, period.
And in your write-up, you mentioned that, like you said, you said it's possible any deficiencies on defense are a function of his inexperience, not inability. Because, like you said, I mean, really, he's caught what, a total of a few hundred innings higher than high school at this point in his life. So
Yep, exactly. And I wonder if that'll affect how they choose to use him this year too. You probably don't take a guy like that and ask him to go catch 110 times in, A ball or he may start in Double A. He seems advanced enough. He'll certainly get to Double A at some point this season, and they may say, he's going to be a 2 out of every 3 games to start, and then you just kind of reevaluate as the season progresses and see how he feels. Is he fatigued? Does he start losing weight like a lot of catchers do just from the wear and tear? Does he start to suffer minor injuries, which obviously catching, it's just really hard on the body. It would very much surprise me if they said you're catching, 5 out of every 6, especially to start the season. Ease him in, let him mash, and then just keep evaluating the catching and the physical toll of catching. I mean, honestly, it's an ongoing basis. It's not like you wait till July 1st, right? You watch him, you have a constant conversation with the player and figure out where he is physically and mentally, and then decide what to do. But the one thing I would be shocked if they did was just pushed him out there and said, you're going to catch as much as possible, because he doesn't have the experience. And in terms of the experience, in terms of actually doing the job, but the experience of taking that wear and tear on his body too. I do think you have to build a catcher up a little bit, like we talk about building pitchers' innings up.
Yeah, and then when you do look at the specific organization, there's a decent chance he and Cartaya are going to be teammates at least some of this year, because they're only about 5 or 6 months apart in age. They're both probably looking at AA this year, and so it might just be a practical matter that we need to get both of these guys innings, and so maybe that question answers itself. Okay, you guys are splitting the time at catcher.
That happened to the Pirates actually with Henry Davis, because they had Endy Rodriguez. They picked up in a trade for Joe. The Mets ended up with Joey Lucchesi, but from the Padres. It was the Joe Musgrove trade, basically. And the Mets sort of inserted themselves in there and traded Endy, and I think they just kind of didn't know what they had. And so, the Pirates did a very good job there too. And unfortunately for those guys, they actually had a third catcher, is much less of a prospect, but they had 3 guys essentially competing for one catching job in high A, and they were constantly trying to move guys around to be able to get the playing time. And then Davis got hurt, which is unfortunate for him, but maybe fortunate in that it let Endy just catch all the time, and he got much better. And Endy's an interesting one too, because he's apparently like an elite defender at first, which not that you want to jump a guy over there. And they said to him, he was like, you need me to play second? I'll go play second. Like usually catchers are like, I catch. It's part of my identity. And apparently he's one of those kids who just, I'll play wherever. I don't care. And I'll be good. Which is great, but if you look at the usage patterns for those guys, and Abraham Gutierrez was the third one. He's, like I said, less of a prospect, but it's a challenge. It's a player development challenge. And I think part of it was, I think they both started, Davis and Rodriguez both started at high end. It was like, get one of these guys to AA as quick as possible so we can get them both catching regularly. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dodgers do the same thing, probably pushing Rushing more than Cartaya, because Rushing has the college experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scorers and threes drained. And if you listen to my Super Bowl bet, Jalen Hurts was the first touchdown of the game. So if you want money on that, you're welcome. And with FanDuel, when you're betting on NBA, you can get a bigger payout with the same game parlay, put a bunch of bets down on a bunch of different things that happen in the game, and get a big money. So don't miss the chance to get your first no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Okay. All right. Next one, Andy Pajes, number 67 on your list. Do we need to take a minute to sing a Bill Cosby song really quick like we did last year?
He's canceled. Yeah. I know. We just can't. Trust me, I wanted to make a picture pages reference somewhere in there. I'm like, I can't do that. Yeah. So, I got other jokes.
That's good. This is I'm going to ask you about something that another outlet wrote. And again, disclaimer, I'm not asking you to say they're right or wrong. You said he's a fringe average runner who can play at least solid defense and right, boosted by the arm strength, and could be a soft regular, even with his power and good walk rates. Baseball Prospectus was lower on his defense. They said he was an average runner on last year's report, but he's lost speed and gotten stiffer in his actions. If he's a first baseman or a designated hitter, merely 25 plus bombs might be enough given the offensive bar at those spots. They're already kind of allowing for the possibility that it's kind of funny because he was a center fielder just a couple of years ago, and it was always, well, he's a center fielder now, but he's not going to stick in center. He'll move to right. But now BP is kind of like, we don't even know if he's going to stick in right field. Have you seen where they're coming from?
I've seen quite a bit of Pajes. I just saw him again in fall league. I saw him in spring training. I've talked to a lot of people who've seen him, and I have no reason whatsoever to think he's not going to be an outfielder. If you told me he was going to end up a 45 defender in right field, sure, right? These, we generally do not get faster or skinnier as we get older, and so in that sense, if he, like I said, could he go from being someone who might be an average defender, especially if he works out a little bit right now, and he's got a cannon for an arm? Does he end up sort of tapering off to 45 defense? Sure, that's possible. Like I said, I saw him in fall league. He and Jose Ramos were in the same lineup, actually. It was pretty interesting to compare the two because they both got huge power. They've both got cannons, but they're very different players. Pajes moves better. He is certainly a better athlete. He's got way better of an approach than Ramos. Despite the fact that Pajes does have some swing and miss, though he has some, I think, a real plan at the plate and is willing to take his walks and is at least trying better and more effectively to get himself into hitters counts. But also the way he moves, I don't believe his actions are stiff at all. I don't think his body is stiff. And I think he ends up staying in the outfield. I mean, I don't think we're discussing left field for him just because the arm is so good. You don't want to waste it there. But I also don't have any particular reason right now to believe he can't play right field, even if he does it at a slightly below average level.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. I've been starting to worry, although, if he's a right fielder, then he's probably not a Dodger because the Dodgers are kind of set in right field for the next little while. And that's kind of, he's always struck me as maybe a trade bait kind of guy. And
I agree. They did, right? He was in
they've traded him
with
once.
The Angels a couple years ago, right? Dodgers had a few of those. Yeah.
Today that we're recording this is actually the anniversary of that trade officially falling apart. So
that's
I just
funny.
saw that on my time hop today. So
yep.
Thanks, Artie Moreno. All right, we did Michael Busch already. So our last one of the 8 guys in your top 100 is James Outman at number 89. I think you were the only one to have Outman in the top 100. And my big question on him is also about defense. We'll talk about his offense too, but on defense, I've seen mixed messages on the different outlets about whether he is a major league center fielder defensively. What are your thoughts on that?
I have only seen him in a corner, I believe. I might have seen him one game in center a while ago. This would have been in 21. I mean, I see an elite athlete. He is really incredibly athletic. And there's some explosiveness. And just to comment on, does it surprise me I'm only the only one to have him on the top 100? I haven't looked at like Kylie's, and I think Eric's isn't up yet over at Fangraphs yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. Like I know Outman it's a little bit of an all or nothing pick. I actually had a couple scouts kind of stump for him. One in particular said that's the guy to put on the back of the list because if it hits, then you've got a guy who's maybe a star. And if it doesn't hit, you have essentially the argument like these were top 100 type tools. There's like top 50 type tools in athleticism. Most of the scouts I talk to think he can play center field. Dodgers think he can play center field. I think it is probably more of a speed and athleticism than great reads and routes type of center field. He is not the natural, glide to the ball in, you look up and you look down and he's already underneath it. Like there's going to be some all out running, diving, but I think he's going to make all of the plays to be able to play center field. Obviously, if he can, the profile for him as an overall player is substantially better. And that is another reason I slipped him onto the back of the list. So, we think he can play center. Lots of people think he can play center. And if he can play center, that bat has a chance to be special there, recognizing there's also swing and miss there. But what everyone who was sort of an Outman advocate came back to me with, because I've actually probably seen him more bad than good at the plate when seeing him personally. But what everyone came back to is this guy's a lot less experienced than the typical player his age because he was a multi-sport guy for a while as an amateur and didn't necessarily have didn't face the greatest competition, didn't have a ton of quality coaching as a hitter when he was an amateur. And so he's been, it's been a bit of making up for a lost time. And And so there's, that combined with the really top line athleticism is why so many people are kind of advocates for him. And Joey Weimer too, with the Brewers, who also made the very, very back end of my list. I think of them as extremely similar players. They're outfielders. They strike out too much. They have crazy power and big speed, and they play like their hair's on fire. And if you believe in betting on athletes, and I do, I've been saying it for 10 plus years, I will always bet on the athletes. That's kind of what I did. I put two really good athletes on the back of the list and took off a couple of guys who I like, who are on that just missed list now, but who are not the same level of athletes, like a Colton Cowser, for example. Colton Cowser is not the same kind of athlete as James Outman is.
And so, Outman, when he, just a few years ago, he was basically organizational depth. He was a non-prospect. He was just a guy on the team, and he's progressed every year. And you and I talked about him last year that the progress he had made, and now with where he's at now, it seems like that progress has continued. In fact, if anything, in 2022, it was maybe his biggest year of progress of taking that next step forward. Do you think that, and obviously there's no real way to know, but it seems to me from an untrained eye, like he's still getting better. And so he's probably not done getting better.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I think that is the sentiment from pro scouts from other teams. I know that is the sentiment for the Dodgers in how they view him. Obviously, you always take it with a grain of salt. Team officials talking about their own players, but they're very high on Outman for sure. He also, I think you can, and I'm wary, sort of crafting a narrative to fit the facts, but he did have a complete swing overhaul before 2021, right? That's how he went from org guy. I mean, if I'd seen him in 2019, I didn't. I'm sure I would have NP'd him. He didn't perform and he wasn't hitting. Even just to go see him, what was there to like? Well, it looks good in the uniform, good athlete,
nice
lacks
hair.
Skills. Yeah, right. Nice hair. Yes. Hey, that counts. Complete swing overhaul. And so then 21, complete, then a true breakout season. And now it's sort of, it's the second year with the new swing now. And is there an increased comfort level? And I would say the same thing if we were talking about a pitcher with a new delivery or change delivery, new arm slot, new arm swing, etc. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for guys getting comfortable with having more experience, more reps with specific mechanics, and that he took that second step forward. Again, I completely concede that this is a narrative that fits the facts. But it does line up rather nicely. And it would not surprise me if that was also the case. In addition to the fact that this is just an athlete, and athletes kind of, they get better, and then they can take specific instruction better. They can make adjustments better than the non-athletes. The non-athletes, sometimes they can, but it's just generally more difficult. Speaking as a non-athlete myself, it is difficult to make adjustments.
Yes, it is. And, and even with Outman's swing and miss, his main competition for the Dodgers starting center field job is Chris Taylor, Trace Thompson, and Bradley Zimmer, which makes Outman the contact guy of the group.
Right. I was going to say, this is good. Yes. Yes. This is the tallest short guy competition.
Absolutely. You know a little bit about those competitions too, huh?
Yes. I win in this house. I am the least fun-sized person in this house. So.
The tallest short guy in the house, huh? That's awesome.
Very delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories, and you got to try Built Bar, because today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And, after that Super Bowl Sunday, you might want to be a little bit healthier for the rest of the week. Go get you some Built Bars. That'll help out, because not only are they healthy, but they're actually tasty as well. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. So if you need something sweet, if you need something to help you get through your day, you need to pick up some protein, Built Bars are there for you. They come in great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and like I mentioned, covered in 100% real chocolate. And not only are they great tasting, but good for you, high protein, high fiber, low calorie, low sugar, low carb, all you can need. And you don't even have to wait to go get them online anymore. You can go into your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick them up today. That's right. Go to the pharmacy section at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Get yourself a pack of Built Bars. They got 4-bar boxes. They got 13-bar boxes. Whatever you want, go get it and thank us later. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB Prospects with host Lindsey Crosby. He's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Speaking of prospects, here's more prospect talk with Keith Law and Jeff.
A couple of guys who didn't make your list, but I've seen on some others, Ryan Pepiot, Nick Frasso, Nick Nastrini. I think, Pepiot is probably different than the other two. I think Frasso and Nastrini from my reading are kind of similar profiles, and maybe it's just their floors are too low. They have potential to be just failures and not make the big leagues at all. Is that kind of why those guys don't show up on your list?
Frasso's, everyone believes he was a reliever. Like that's, and I'm not saying bad things about Frasso, but if you see Frasso on a top 100, I would have a lot of questions. Nobody I spoke to thought he had a chance to start. And he's not been healthy also. It's an electric arm. I don't think he's really got the 3 pitches to start. He has no track record of health. It's a great arm. God, I'm thinking of my Dodgers top 20. Actually, I have it open here. I could look, but God, I think I've got 3 more arms in between the 8 guys we talked about. By the time I get down to Frasso, their system is so deep. It's really deep. 1, 2, 3. I think I might have 4 more in between, certainly 3 before I get to Frasso, because Frasso's just, it's 80% or more likelihood that he's a reliever. Pepiot, he stunk in the big leagues, obviously. And what was shocking was the changeup wasn't as good. People were talking about that as a 70 or 80 pitch, and it wasn't in the big leagues. And it kind of wasn't in the minors last year. And there's some thought that maybe it was as he was working on trying to improve the breaking ball. And the breaking ball did look better, at least, because he's always been he's had 2 issues, right? He doesn't throw enough strikes, and he's never really had a breaking ball. And the breaking ball got better, but the changeup got worse. I don't know if that's a trade-off you necessarily want to make. The strikes also just weren't there. My take is they've never been there. He wasn't on my top 100 a year ago, when I think he was on several others. And I only know that because, getting some blowback a little bit. Why isn't he on your list? That guy does not throw enough strikes. And I don't know that he's going to throw enough strikes. It's not one of those where I look at it. It's like DL Hall with the Orioles, who does not throw enough strikes, by the way. He's also left-handed. You give a guy a little more slack. And Hall has 3 pitches, and he is like top-line athlete. I'm kind of mad at him that he doesn't throw more strikes, because there's no reason he can't throw more strikes, right? Elite athlete with a really good delivery. You should throw more strikes. This is on you at this point. Whereas with Pepiot, I see the athleticism's less and the delivery has never been great. And I just don't know that the strikes are going to be there. And if you asked me, what I think his role is, I'm also low probability that he's a starter in the long run, maybe 30% or so. But there's a little bit, I'm not just saying just dead reliever either. There's that in-between role that lots of teams have, where it's like a bulk innings reliever or, a short duration starter. I'm not saying an opener, but, you're no more than twice through the order, and maybe it's 14 or 15 batters. And in Pepiot's case, because he's got that, assuming the changeup gets back to elite this year too, you might pick your spots depending on the handedness of the opposing team's lineup also. And Nastrini to me is a little bit in between those two, in that Nastrini's probably got the best pure chance to start of all of them. It is just dirty stuff. Command and control have not consistently been there. He's made a ton of strides. If you look at what he was doing the first half of his draft year at UCLA, he was like, what the hell? What? If you told people on April 1st of his draft year, this guy's going to go in the 4th round, they would have been like, are you high? Like, this guy can't find the plate. And I think a lot of it was, and this is from talking to people who know the kid a little bit too, just he was not a fit at UCLA, and just getting him out of there and away from the coaches kind of unlocked a lot. He's also pretty athletic. I like his chances. And he was one of those, I only rank 100, and then I put on another 10 or so who just missed, or roughly the 101 to 110 or something. And then I kept talking about, just missed. Nastrini's kind of in that next group of 40 or 50. Nastrini's
111,
names.
huh?
So no, actually there's another Dodger who's ahead of him. Which I guess, God, what day is today? Today is Thursday as we talk. So Friday, the Dodgers list will be up. Is this going to be up before the Dodgers list is up?
This will go up Friday morning too. So
okay, perfect. So I can say who it is then. It's River Ryan, who they got in the Matt Beatty trade. He is the next Dodgers prospect. And if you want to argue, he was 111, 112, something like that. I feel like we're talking about the atomic numbers at the right in the table where like UUQ or something. Yeah, that's him. That guy's really good. Really good.
What do you like about River Ryan? I didn't even think to ask about him.
No. Well, he's the story, right? He was a two-way guy and was still trying to be a two-way guy for the Padres, and he ended up being the return for Matt Beattie in a trade in March. And the Dodgers, great job by their pro scouting department. Pro scouts, they matter. The teams with big pro scouting staffs, team with big scouting staffs, they find more players. You look at the Dodgers, international, draft, pro. They're succeeding in all of those. Why? Well, one big reason is they have a lot of scouts. And that was a good job by their pro scouts who said, we like the delivery here. He just doesn't pitch that much. And if you get this guy just on the mound and have him stop hitting, you could do some things. He might take off, and you could do some things with the delivery too, like just little cleanup. And I mean, I had multiple scouts say that guy should be on the back of the 100. I'm like, I don't know if I have the confidence in that yet. Like that seemed like a little bit of a jump. And he's a pitcher. If he was a position player, I might feel a little bit, there's always a little more confidence, putting the Sammy Zavala, the Padres kid who was mostly in the Arizona Rookie League last year. Well, he's a position player, right? There's it's a little easier floor there. But Ryan's pretty, for a kind of an unknown prospect, it was like, oh man, this guy's, that's one of those where as I went through the process, let me say it this way. So I went through the whole process. He kept moving up, even within the Dodgers ranking too. He definitely started further down. I talked to Dodgers people. I talked to other pro scouts with other clubs. You saw him, an analyst one specific analyst I'm thinking of with another team who sort of put in a little plug for Ryan too. And he just kept moving up the list. It's like, oh, the freaking Dodgers did it again, didn't they?
So you're saying the Dodgers won the Matt Beattie trade?
Yes, I am saying that. I believe I can say that.
Oh, that's awesome. And River Ryan's a cool name too.
It is, right?
He sounds like he should have nice hair. I don't know what he looks like.
I would agree. He should have, he should have like the Dansby Swanson type.
Yeah.
Right.
Like his parents were probably hippies.
I would assume, right? If your name's River.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. So last question, the Dodgers, you have them ranked as your number one farm system in baseball. I think that's second year in a row that you've had the Dodgers at number one.
It is. I didn't realize that when I did it. It's funny. I don't look at the previous year's rankings because I don't want to bias myself. There would be anchoring bias for folks who've read the inside game. And then I did it. And then afterwards I looked back. I was like, oh my God, they were number one last year too. Not that I care. It's just sort of like, oh my God, the Dodgers just keep right on going.
And in your write-up, you used the phrase Dodgers devil magic, which unfortunately, Dodger fans, we are familiar with devil magic, having been the victims of Cardinals devil magic several times. But this is a different kind of devil magic. And and you kind of mentioned it when you're talking about River Ryan, that just the whole approach, the Dodgers kind of have this cohesive approach to building a team that seems to be really working for them.
Yes, across the board too, that they keep hitting on all of these different areas that I'm talking about. Obviously I gave some love to the pro scouts, give some to the amateur scouts. Nastrini was a 4th rounder. Emmett Sheehan is in their top 20. I think he was the 6th rounder. Justin Wroblewski, they took coming off Tommy John. He was the 11th round pick in that draft, and he is on the top 20 now. And he was apparently blowing at the end of last year, where it's like, that might be another guy. That might be the guy we're talking about a year from now, as he's a top 120 or 130 prospect. If he stays healthy, obviously. They keep doing this. They keep finding these guys. They keep identifying value. Dalton Rushing is another one, identifying value that other teams are missing. It's not like these guys are secrets, right? That, Dalton Rushing played at Louisville. Everybody saw him at some point. Wroblewski, he was out with Tommy John, but he was at Oklahoma State. It's not like he was at, Pencil University, right? The Dodgers are seeing things that other teams are not seeing. And that comes to pro scouting too. I would be scared if I were one of those teams that doesn't have pro scouts. I'd be very nervous making a trade with the Dodgers because they have just as big an R&D department as anyone else and a really big and good pro scouting staff. And they identify the River Ryans. And you know what? I don't want to trade my River Ryan for Matt Beattie. I want to trade my River Ryan for Juan Soto. And so I think the Dodgers, they deserve a ton of credit. When you talk to people who work there too, not only have they committed resources to all of these areas, the 3 scouting departments and to R&D, but under Andrew Friedman, they have built a culture, a cohesive culture where everyone, and put player development into there as well, they're all working together. They're all on the same page. There's a ton of communication. People cross those different boundaries between departments. And when they bring a guy in, it's clear what the intention was, and the plans are already being formed to how to help that player. How can we get more out of that player? How can we help this player become the best player he can possibly be? They're going to miss. Jaron Kendall was a whiff. early returns on Maddox Bruns, or he still has great stuff, but the guy can't throw a strike. You know what? They may miss on that one too. They hit more than enough times to make up for the misses. And I credit that to, like I said, they've committed to their people and they've built the right kind of corporate culture.
That's awesome. So probably number one farm system again next year, huh?
Forever, actually. Forever. I'm just going to rank the other 29. We'll just leave the Dodgers at 1.
Perfect.
Like I actually just
it's
wrote
only
it
been
in
a few
Sharpie
years
on my screen.
Only a few years since you told me Gavin Lux is the next Mike Trout, and that has worked out perfectly so far. And
exactly.
So,
they're clones. They're clones. Yeah.
Well, Keith, I really appreciate you talking with me. I always love talking prospects with you. I think this is third, maybe even fourth year in a row we've done this around this time of year. So I really appreciate it. Listeners, if you're not familiar with Keith's work, you should be. He's over at The Athletic. He also has a couple of books out. He referenced one of them a minute ago, The Inside Game. Great, amazing book if you like baseball and or psychology, because it's kind of how the two play together, and understanding baseball and the biases that we bring into our understanding of baseball. It's really, really good. And Smart Baseball is every bit as good. Totally different book. The subtitle kind of is basically what we were just talking about with the Dodgers. Smart Baseball, the story behind the old stats that are ruining the game, the new ones that are running it, and the right way to think about baseball. I think the Dodgers probably read that book, and
they
why
could
they're
write that book probably better than I did.
Playing such smart baseball. So Keith, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And everybody follow Keith on Twitter at Keith Law and check him out at The Athletic.
Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for Keith Law for joining us. I believe this is the third year or fourth year, or I don't know how many years. It's been a few years that Keith Law has joined us talking about Dodger prospects, and he's always excited about Dodger prospects, so that makes us excited about Dodger prospects. If you want something else to listen to, more prospect talk, go check out Locked On MLB Prospects with host Lindsey Crosby. He's a prospect encyclopedia. You can find it wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. You can also find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube if you search for Locked On Dodgers, which is also you can find us on social media, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to send us an email, or actually you can find Jeff on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. Get a hold of us on either of those accounts through DM. You can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Take your smart device, play podcast Locked On Dodgers, and remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.